A special thanks to Galloping Ghost Arcade for making this episode possible, and for hosting Sega Week. Located just outside Chicago in Brookfield, Illinois, and open until 2 a.m. daily, Galloping Ghost Arcade is home to over 500 classic arcade machines. For $15, you can come in and play all the games you want, all day long. Learn more at gallopingghostarcade.com.
Let's get scratching.
We got an explosive broadcast coming to you. Listen up. Sega games, just keep playing them.
We're back. It's the Segabit Swinger Report Show. Get ready for Sega interviews and news with George and Barry. Hello and welcome to episode 86 of the Segabit Swing Report Show. I'm Barry. George is not here today because I'm here in person, the first in-person podcast I think we've ever done.
Seriously?
Yeah, in the 86 episodes. I'm here with Chris Tang, who has done a lot of stuff. You've done competitive game championships with Nintendo World Championships.
Nintendo World Championships,
And
1990.
Yeah, and then 1994 you had the Sonic & Knuckles
Yes,
Rock
Sega,
the Rock.
Sonic & Knuckles, Rock the Rock, $25,000 on MTV, the big one, and you can check that out on YouTube.
Yeah, and surprisingly, today you actually debuted an indie game that you've been working on.
Yes.
So we'll talk about
And
that
it's
too.
something of interest to Sega fans.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to start, let's talk about. I always like to jump back to the beginning. So what kind of gamer were you? Like, what was your system?
Wow. Okay. that's the interesting thing. I mean, I started off like really little. I had like a ColecoVision, but I was like probably too little to really appreciate it fully at the time. But I knew I was a gamer at heart, and I'd go to the arcade, and my grandma or my parents would give me a quarter, and I'd throw a quarter down and play a game. And I wasn't really good when I was little, but I would watch TV shows like Starcade, and I would see the players on that show, and I'd be inspired. I'd be like, wow, I'm gonna be good at games someday.
Yeah.
That's like so cool. Technology is cool, and that sort of thing. And later on, when the NES came out, I think that's probably when I had my first real passion for games, like just completely developed. I got my copy of Super Mario Brothers. Like it was a test market version of the Nintendo at the time, so no one else had it. No kids in school even knew what it was. But I was like, at home playing like an arcade perfect version of Super Mario Brothers, and I understood how awesome that was. And very soon after that, I think I got the Sega Master System. And the thing I noticed was that the Sega Master System was I would make a lot of new friends with people, because if they had a Sega Master System, that means they were like really into it. That means that they probably had a Nintendo too, and they were probably so hardcore that they'd like got everything. So there would be like kids in my school that I would borrow games from, and I wouldn't have to spend so much. And they'd like borrow my game, and I'd borrow their games. And I found a lot of great games, particularly stuff like Golvelius and Ys and Miracle Warriors, stuff that would be like, I don't know, really expensive. And, I'd like let them borrow like my crappy Afterburner or something. And that would be cool. So as a gamer, I just like to play everything. I played in the arcades a lot, so I got to be a big fan of Sega games, playing stuff like Space Harrier and like Galaxy Force and Power Drift, and a lot of stuff in the 90s were some of my extreme favorites. And in terms of being a fan of Sega console games, Phantasy Star was such a huge game in my life. I had started winning video game tournaments. They had a Hawaii State Nintendo Championships that Nintendo and like the local department store in Hawaii called Holiday Mart had. It was on Super Mario Brothers 1, and the rules were like some of the best rules I'd ever seen for a tournament. I've been in a lot of tournaments, and I've helped run tournaments, and I'm actually the announcer for the Tetris World Championships every year. And in this contest, it was on Super Mario Brothers, a game that everybody knew in 1988, and the rules were get as far as you can with the most points and the most coins. So whoever beat the game with the most points would win. And for a tournament of that time, those rules were extremely well thought out, because you had to balance whether or not you got farther, or whether or not you took a risk and wasted more time and got more points. But if somebody else beat the game, then like even if you had a higher score, you would lose. So I thought that was like an incredibly great tournament rule set, and I ended up winning, and I am the Hawaii State Nintendo champion. A little reflection on how that impacts like my Sega fandom is that when they did interviews with me, of course they're going to ask me what my favorite video game is, and they did that in the context of like, oh, it's Nintendo, I must like Nintendo games, and they asked me what my favorite game was, and I said it's Phantasy Star. And it's a Sega game, it's not a Nintendo game. And the interviewers would have to ask me, well, what's a Sega? Like they would say, like they would not know of all systems, so in their articles they would say, oh, well, not all video games are Nintendo, some of them are Sega. And Phantasy Star would be the game that I would list as my favorite for, I don't know, many tournaments, including the Sonic & Knuckles one. In my EGM interview, I said my favorite game was Phantasy Star.
And it's such a strange game to pick, I guess, in that context, because they're probably expecting you to pick something where you're like, a game you can speedrun.
Right, something competitive or something, I don't know, like not one where you kind of like sit down and like enjoy it for the story.
Right, you're not going to see Phantasy Star like
in a tournament.
The tournament.
Yet.
Yeah, right, of course. And so from there, then, I guess tell us a little bit about how you got into the Sonic & Knuckles Rock the Rock. Because I've watched it a few times, but I watched it recently last night, and it's weird, right?
Yeah, no, that, the Rock the Rock, it's really underrated and not talked about too much. But it was amazing because it was a true international competition, and you'd have things that would claim to be a world championships, like the Nintendo World Championships, but it's only open to people in the United States. Mm-hmm. But for the Sonic & Knuckles Hard Rock Cafe thing, the preliminaries, they simultaneously held competitions all over the world. They had people from France, they had people from Germany, Japan, Brazil. I don't know all the countries by heart, but those were some of the countries that they had, and many, many cities in the U.S., and they all had them at the same time, so you could not city hop like you could in the NWC. You had to be at one and win there, and then they would fly you out pretty much directly to Alcatraz for the grand finals.
Okay, so like in it, I was seeing you get arrested. So how were you arrested? Because I don't think I saw that part.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, we're grown up now, so we know that everything on TV is kind of for show. Yeah. And I mean, what happened was, you know, they had the preliminaries, and you know, I would win. They had our finals, and then they like would put us in, like, in my case, it was a jean jacket. Other locations had prison stripes. Mine was, I think, you know, the jacket was a little cooler looking, so I was pretty happy with that. Mm-hmm. And then they, you know, they said, "Oh, you win. Time to go to Alcatraz." And for me, it wasn't so bad because they had, I mean, Alcatraz was local to San Francisco, and I'd won my regional in San Francisco. This was the sort of tournament where I kind of knew about it, but I mean, I had a history of competitive gaming, so I knew my chances were good, but you never know until you show up. And like all my friends were entering too, and they were really good players. There were other people who had competed in Nintendo World Championships as well. So I didn't know how well I was going to do, but it turns out, you know, I did pretty darn well, and I ended up winning. I mean, if you look in like some of the videos, like I have like 2 hours of like footage from it on camcorder video that the Oakland Nintendo World Championships adult winner had taken because he was my buddy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you see guys like Jason Cole is like hanging out, and I think Graham Wolf is there too, and those are some guys in the Street Fighter community, and they're just like a lot of great players. Jeff Yoden, Mike Paring. Yeah, we were all there, and we didn't know who was going to win, and the Bay Area was just filled with great talent, and well, I guess I got my shot.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing was hosted by Bill Bellamy and Daisy Fuentes.
Yes.
Did you mingle with them at all, or meet them at all, or was it mainly just like they presented and then
they presented, they did the TV show, they did, you know, kind of hang out with us, and they talked to us, and, you know, they'd get interviews with us on camera. A lot of it didn't appear on the TV broadcast, of course. I mean, they had hours and hours of this stuff, and they cut it down to like half an hour or less, right. And they had to mix it in with this other stuff that I guess they're obligated to put it with. There's actually other footage from the tournament that's online. There was like a Fox News for Kids feature. Someone had uploaded that to YouTube. There was another one that I was in for, I don't know, it's like some kind of tech TV sort of thing. That had some hosts, and they had a bunch of other features on video games, which is really funny because in the same video, I would see a video for Rock the Rock, and then there would be like an ad for Primal Rage and the same thing, and it was just like really funny because I sort of worked on Primal Rage.
Right, of course. That's funny. So there were 25 people. $25,000 in
It was
prize
like
money.
30 people.
So it wasn't. Yeah, they were.
It was like, I have the video. I could probably. They actually said like on the stage they said, yeah, we have people from all over. They're like 31 maybe.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know.
So
It was. The story varies, but yeah, I could look it up. If it was around somewhere between 25 and 31.
And what I thought was funny was they said the winner would receive $25,000 in prize money and the secret of breakthrough lock-on technology. Did they share the secret with you? I don't really know how they could.
Well, at the event, they had a little press conference, and they showed people for the first time that you could plug an old Sonic game onto the new game, and you could basically dump the ROM, the graphics ROM of the levels, and combine it with a new character. And that was like, they would call it lock-on technology, which I guess a mainstream person who doesn't really know how this stuff works would be able to comprehend it. So that was the secret. The secret was that you could play your old character from like Sonic 2 or a different Sonic 3 and then put Knuckles in it.
Right, of course.
Which is, if you think about it today, that's actually pretty innovative.
Right.
Maybe they got a little too wrapped up in the marketing speak, because maybe they could have made it so more than Sonic could have been compatible. Like, what if, imagine like you could have Ryu run through the game or something, or they could partner with another company. You could stick the graphics ROM data from whatever game they wanted to, and before they release it, they have it preloaded so that it'll allow you to kind of do mods on the fly. But that was sort of what it was back then.
Yeah, it's almost like Amiibos now, where you're like, if you have this, you can put so and so in your game. That's interesting. So they didn't really share new secret information with you. It was mainly just.
Oh, we got to know about it before everybody else in the world did.
That's
but
true.
That wasn't that long from after the tournament. So
yeah. So I saw them going around, and they were asking people, what's the first thing you would buy? And they didn't air what they asked you, but do you remember what you said to them? The first thing you'd buy if you won the prize?
Oh, they did actually. That was the very last thing that they said.
I didn't catch that. What was it?
Daisy Fuentes said, $25,000, what are you going to do? And this is literally what I said. I'm going to buy more games. Play. And that's how they ended the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's there.
That's
and
hilarious.
when I went to Sega headquarters, I think it was a couple of weeks later, Tom Kalinske actually asked me again, what I'm going to do. And I said, yeah, I'm going to buy more games. And that's pretty much what I said on TV. And he said, oh, but we're going to give you all the Sega games for a couple of years now. You're not going to buy any of our games. I'm like, no, I'm going to buy your arcade games.
So did you buy any arcade cabinets or anything?
Well, I collected boards. I've been collecting boards for a while now. I think I started with Capcom stuff, so I would get Trojan and Legendary Wings and Gunsmoke and all the stuff I had on the NES, Commando, Speed Rumbler. Some of those are my favorites. I got a lot of Konami stuff, Contra, Super Contra, Ajax, and I got a couple of Sega ones. I got Quartet because the music's really good.
I love Quartet's music.
Yeah,
It's so good.
I got it just for the music. So yeah, I think most of the money just went to a new computer so I could get better work done.
Right.
And that went a long way. So I'm pretty happy with how things went.
That's awesome. So at the tournament, with the Nintendo World Championships, they had special cartridges. Obviously, you have one of those, I'd assume.
Oh yeah, actually I still have mine. So
that's cool.
I almost sold it off, and then one of my friends, Robin Mahara, who had also been a Nintendo World Championships finalist, he said, dude, don't sell your cartridge, man, because he sold his and he kind of regretted it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right. I'll hold on to that for a little while longer, because who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. So at the Sonic and Knuckles tournament, they didn't have I know they didn't give you guys special cartridges, but they didn't have a special cartridge made for the tournament, did they?
At the time that the tournament happened, Sonic and Knuckles was not out yet. And actually, as a competitor, I did not know that you could lock it on. So when they told us that we'd be playing Sonic 3, the fact that we were going to be using Knuckles, and it was actually a secret. Okay. So if you want to talk about it being a contest cartridge that other people wouldn't be able to practice on, yeah, actually you couldn't practice because you would have to have had it ahead of time, and I didn't.
Okay.
And Sonic and Knuckles, I did study with Sonic. I studied Sonic 3 playing as Sonic, and because I knew the level layouts for the finals, that's the knowledge I used and how I was able to win. And that's how I knew that. It's interesting because on the video it shows like a countdown and it shows like it going 3, 2, 1, and then it shows me winning. That actually happened 10 seconds before the actual finish.
Oh.
Because I looked at my score and I looked at his score, and I knew the last level of Sonic 3 so well that I knew every single ring you could possibly get, and I had gotten all of them at a perfect run.
Oh, wow.
I looked at his screen; he was like 20 behind, and like not even close. So I was already celebrating like 10 seconds before. So
it was the most rings and the highest score.
no, it's just rings.
Just rings.
Just
Okay.
rings, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot of pressure because if you get hit, like it's basically you have to go through the entire tournament, and like imagine this, like going through round after round of of eliminations, and if you ever get hit and lose your rings, it's all over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure, and
That's tricky.
Yeah.
So I think they interviewed you and you gave a tip. You were like, were you the one that said keep it cool and keep moving? Was that you?
Yeah, it probably was.
You make sure nothing hits
Nothing
you.
hits you. Never.
And be
ever,
careful.
Yeah.
Good
Don't get
advice.
hit.
So what advice would you give like now to people who are trying to either speed run a game like that or collect all the rings in the fastest amount of time? What's your advice?
Well, nowadays, I mean, it depends what the stakes are. I mean, when you're playing in a live competition and you could get eliminated if you ever get hit, then that's going to be the rule set that you go by. Now, if you're trying to speed run something, I know of speedrunning techniques, and I think it's funny because the Nintendo Championships that I did for Hawaii was kind of like a primitive version of speedrunning, except it was like a speedrun and a score run at the same time. Get to know the level, do things like experiment and do things that other people might not think of, because that's kind of how I compete too. I try to think outside the box and then like break the game in ways that other people wouldn't think of. I actually have some kind of strange satisfaction I get from finding things that I think that other people don't know about games.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so from there, you went. Did you do any other major competitions from there? I know you've done some.
Yeah, I mean, on and off. Like the thing is, it's strange because I was working on video games and competing in these things, and I don't know. It was strange because there are all these guys in the Bay Area who do this. They'd be really good at video games, they'd enter contests, they would write for magazines, and they work at game companies. And I was another one of those guys that did all three. So, it's just something that comes with the territory of loving playing video games. But when I started working for Capcom, like I didn't feel like it was right for me to enter fighting game tournaments anymore. Interestingly, I entered the very first Street Fighter II tournament that was ever held, and I got the most kick-ass trophy from it. It's like a karate dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because that's what they got that was what was available, but it actually made sense, and I got third.
Oh, nice.
And it's one of my favorite trophies, even though it's third, because it's just like, it's like a Street Fighter trophy, and it's got a karate guy on it. and I took Shotokan when I was a kid, so I kind of understood that. Yeah, that kind of works.
So, Capcom was the first game developer that you started working
No,
with?
actually, no. Actually, it stems from Nintendo World Championships. After I won the Nintendo World Championships, I actually met people that worked at Atari.
Okay.
Which is very strange because Atari and Nintendo were at war at the time, and they were suing each other, and it was kind of crazy. Where it's like, I was like kind of like a fan of Tengen Tetris, and there was like Nintendo Tetris, and Nintendo Tetris was a game that we had to play for the championships. So I started going into Tengen when I was extremely young. Like that's like didn't really talk about it before because I was like so young. I couldn't get a work permit legally, but they paid me out of their pocket. But that was how I got my start in the industry, and I got a lot of great experience there. Tengen, Atari, no other place like it on earth for creating games. I mean, they had people there like Ed Logg and Mike Halley and people who had made these legendary games over the course of so many years that I idolized, and they were still there doing it. Mm-hmm. And I got to see that in action, and there's all this history there. And it was like a miniature city that had all these different systems, like, kind of like government and like industry. And like if I needed like something like a control panel drilled, I would like, go down the hall and turn left, and then there are these guys like working on the metal shop, and then like next thing I know, like they banged out like in like an hour like a 2-player 6-button Street Fighter like control panel because I needed it for the control pedestal I just bought from the game design department who was selling off their control pedestals. And I'm like, this is really cool. That was my home. Like I went on like a independent study program for school, so I didn't have to go to school full time. Mm-hmm. And I worked on games when I was a kid, and it was my dream.
That's awesome.
So yeah, the first job I had was actually at Atari Tengen. There's a I don't know what my official title was. It's more like kind of like product development consultant. We did things like game counseling. I wrote manuals.
Okay.
So I wrote the manuals for Gauntlet 4. Actually, Gauntlet 4 is probably the proudest thing I got to work on in that era. Before I worked on Coin Up with Primal Rage. I've got some interesting stories from Gauntlet 4. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is a good story, and I think you'll appreciate it because it has very deep roots with Sega, and especially what they're doing with now. Okay, so we usually got these products in, usually they're from Europe. They'd be typically bad games, and we'd say like, oh well, we won't bring this out. We don't care for it. And they'd ask us like what they can do to improve them, like what does it take for this product to succeed? Because a lot of them like really want to get their games like published. And Atari, Tengen, even though we were at war with Nintendo, they were extremely powerful in the Genesis. Like they had a huge market share. Ms. Pac-Man was still making money for them years after the fact. So we get products across our table. We'd write reports on them. We did bug reports. Like I said, I'd write manuals and stuff like that. So a lot of the general work that needed to get done for a consumer release, like we did it. So one day we got this version of Gauntlet in, and I had played a lot of NES Gauntlet, and NES Gauntlet had an ending, it had bosses, it had more of a quest. It was actually more fit for a consumer game than it was for an arcade game, because the arcade game, all it needs to do is suck quarters down and kill your dudes, and it makes money. But for a home game, it needed to have a quest. You need to be able to like play it with your buddy long term. It had password system for saves, and yeah, like an ending, and like more of a point, more like an RPG. So we got this version of Gauntlet in. It's a really good version of Gauntlet, like in terms of like recreating sort of like the arcade graphics and sounds. And it was good for what it was, but we were in like 1993, 1994 even, and we were in the era where home games, you expected like hour-long quests, and something with the medieval theme of Gauntlet, you expected more of an RPG, more of a quest, that sort of thing. And in my report I said, I kind of like this, but it's probably not going to do well here because it has to be at least as good as NES Gauntlet.
Right.
Because NES Gauntlet had come out like in 86 or 87, like way back, like almost 10 years before that. So people had expectations of what it should be. So I wrote like a proposal. I said, okay, well, this thing could probably come out here, but you have to have more content, put an RPG mode in. Instead of getting points, you get experience points, you level up, you improve your abilities, have shopkeepers be able to buy items and that sort of thing. Give us like 300 levels. I know like some of the things I asked for were completely like insane, and like developers probably hated me because I would like have really bad demands. And even though some of them were lazy and didn't want to like do the things that they should probably have done, I look back at some of my old reports and I'm like, man, I was like pretty harsh back then. Yeah. So we're like, okay, so yeah, that was Gauntlet, and we sent our report off, and we went back to work playing really bad games like Pit Fighter and Road Blasters. But 6 months later, game comes back. So we popped this version of Gauntlet, and we're like, okay, so what'd they do? First of all, it had this amazing music. It was just like the best music we had ever heard in the Genesis. We were starting to get excited. We're like, what's going on here? And we looked at the menu, and it said Quest Mode. And it had RPG experience points, shops you could buy items. It had theme towers. It had boss dragons. Everything I had asked for, except maybe not as many levels. And I was just like blown away. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And that became Gauntlet 4, and that was one of the best Genesis games made. It had music from I think it was Masahiro Iwata and the guys that did Final Fantasy Tactics. It's really well known for being a game with great Genesis audio and being just one of the best games on the system because it had multiplayer, it had a long quest. It's just really well done, and the fact that I got sort of like a proposal in to make that game better and to become what it was one of the most proudest moments that I had, just being around in that building.
Wow.
And why this is so important to you guys at Sega Bits and Sega history in general is that was the first game that M2 made. Oh, wow. Yes. And that's a very big part of their history, and something that I like looked back on. I didn't even find this out until much later, that it was M2 that did that. Yeah. And something that M2 does in their games now is they do something that's more than they have to do. That's part of what they do as a developer, and when they did that for Gauntlet 4, I think that was maybe their first, what they call in their interviews, like a Grananoff, or like some kind of like, this is got to be the thing that like, people are going to like really like about it then. And it has to do with a deep understanding of what a fan would like, someone who like loves that game, like what are they going to enjoy about it. Right. And I really am happy when I see developers do that, and there are not very many in this world, but M2 is like one of them, and my respect for them is just knows no bounds. And that was just something where I look back at it and I'm just like, I'm so proud to have been part of that project. So that's my early like Genesis development story.
That's really cool.
Hope you like that one. I know it's really long-winded, and
no, that's awesome, and it kind of brings things full circle because like one of the things I was kind of promoting here for Sega is the 3D Classics release, which they worked on. And you're right; they always go above and beyond. It's not you're not just getting Fantasy Zone, 2, which in and of itself was them going above and beyond back in 2008. They have that Loop Link Land. I don't know if you checked that out, but it's
like they took an 8-bit like style game and they turned it into a System 16 game.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, they have like these funny credit sequences where they have all the sprites from different games coming together and all these little jokes. And so it's like,
no one else does that. Like,
they didn't have to do that.
Most companies that do like a re-release, they're just like, oh, it's an HD, ship it, no new features. But nope, Space Harrier, I get a new boss. Really, like the Master System Hi-Oh, they actually put that in there.
Yeah,
complete with the music and everything. And Thunderblade gets a whole new level. Some of them they didn't do very much. Like, I don't think they did really anything for Power Drift. Even though they said in their interviews that Power Drift in itself was like an extra. So, all right, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. So from there, then, you went on to Capcom.
Yes.
And what was your first major project at Capcom?
Well, what had happened, actually, I worked on Primal Rage. Primal Rage did amazingly. And then Primal Rage 2 got canceled. Midway bought the company, and, there was a lot of politics involved. And even though it was pretty far along, and actually part of the reason why I'm here at Galloping Ghost for this interview is because they have Primal Rage 2 here, and it's sort of a thing of legend now. They said I could join another team if I wanted to, but I chose not to, and actually I kind of had it lined up at Capcom, and Street Fighter 3 was the first thing. Street Fighter 3 and Darkstalkers 3. I got to do cool things like come up with fighting game systems and like new features. Some of the moves, particularly like Yun, from like Yun and Yang, what made them different. I think EX moves were something that I came up with, where you hit 2 buttons and it uses meter.
Oh, cool.
Special taunts, things like that. I wrote all of the win quotes, things that characters say to each other when they beat each other up.
Do you have a favorite?
I've got a lot of favorite ones.
Oh, what are a few of them?
Akuma. A weak body for a weak soul. It was an easy task to separate the two.
That's nice.
A lot of Ryu channels, kind of like how I like to live my life. Trying to remember what my favorite Ryu one is. I can tell you what my favorite Ken one is.
What is it?
This one's really cool because they actually got into HD Remix. Like, I guess they're like looking for, which I didn't actually work on HD Remix, but they actually got Street Fighter 2, and they updated Street Fighter 2, and they gave them quotes that were from other Street Fighter games. It's really funny. I need a better workout than this. Where's Eliza? And it's really kind of like it has multiple meanings. It's like
right.
You're so weak that like fighting my girlfriend would be a better workout than this.
Right.
Or he wants to get it on. Mm-hmm. So
there you go. Slip that one by the censors.
And then there's ones that did get censored. My favorite one I wrote for Marvel vs. Capcom that did not get in the game. Mm-hmm. Would you like to hear that?
Yeah, go for it.
Dr. Light, who was that guy? Suck man. Because it's like Fireman shoots fire, Iceman shoots ice. Suck man, he sucks.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let that
Why
go.
wouldn't they let that
Yeah, my producer said later on that like if it had gone like 6 months later, it would have gotten in. But
that's funny.
But yeah, suck man.
So you, in terms of, let's talk about some of the Capcom games that appeared on the Dreamcast.
Yeah,
so
I did.
Worked on Power Stone?
Yeah. There's like localization stuff,
yeah.
Fighting systems, things like that.
Cool.
I didn't to be honest. I got down and dirty in the trenches a little bit more at Atari than I did at Capcom. Capcom's kind of like a international company, even though I worked for Capcom Japan. Well, they did a lot of sort of like the stuff that I used to do, which was like time moves and just like get down into the systems and make stuff from scratch. I didn't get to do a whole lot of that at Capcom, but it was more more administrative, more like writing things and writing reports and that sort of thing. Kind of miss getting down and dirty with it.
Yeah.
But I had fun with it, and like I said, I had a lot of fun with my writing.
Yeah. And you were telling me before we started recording about Tech Romancer.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, my story was just this little aside because I came up with like this long list of really great names for the game, and it's called Kikayo in Japan, which translates to Machine King. So I thought that just call it Machine King. It's like it's a translation, and people like good just good direct translations, and then I came up with a bunch of other things that they could name it too. And I said, oh, well, there's this name Tech Romancer. I think you guys should use it for like an RPG or something different. And they ended up using it for Kikayo, which is like a robot fighting game that has robots from different genres, like Mighty Robots and Kitty Robots and Gundams and like Macross Valkyries fighting each other. So I guess it kind of works, but it doesn't really sound magical, I guess. But yeah, it went down that way, and they recorded like crazy announcer for that Tech Romancer.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
It's cool because like our producer in our game is actually the same guy I worked with at Capcom.
Okay.
For the game I'm working with now, so we always like joke around and laugh about our old war stories from Capcom. We still do it.
So let's talk a little bit about that game. So this
Sure.
was a secret.
Yep, secret, super secret. I mean, it's not secret anymore, but we wanted to at least have, if we're going to show this thing at all, we wanted to at least be a little special. And we have like kind of like a nice connection with Galloping Ghost, and they've treated me so well, and they have the facilities here to like produce arcade games. And I knew that. I visited here last year, and I had a great time. We had been talking about it. I sort of showed them a little bit of what I was developing just because they were curious, and they really liked it. And here we are like a year later, and they said Sega Week was coming up, and I was like, it was like 2 months ago. It was like right when you guys were talking about it. And I had wondered whether or not it had to do with what you had been talking about, I guess, with Aaron Weber about like, you gotta check out Galloping Ghost Arcade. They got a Sega Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they're gonna do an event? Oh, cool. Well, that must be the one they were talking about.
Yeah.
But no matter what it was just like it's Sega Week, and it's like, if they can put together a cabinet for us, and we can get our game up into like playable, like good condition in that time, like this would be like a great chance to have people play it, and it'll like sort of get our butt in gear to really ramp up and test to see like just how serious we are and how far we can take it. First, we know we're gonna be serious and try to take it as far as we can, but like there's nothing more motivated than a trial by fire, and this had completely delivered that. This is an amazing experience in every way, even though I'm tired and I'm like wired up on like my bloodstream is probably 99% Rockstar right now. But it's good because I'm totally wired for this interview, and I've just been like talking like nonstop.
Yeah, you can crash after this too. You're good.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're gonna like bug fix some stuff and like update the ROM tomorrow.
Right, of course.
But yeah, the game is it's a Strike Harbinger. It's a spiritual successor to Sega sci-fi games of the 80s and 90s. Along the lines of Phantasy Star and Phantasy Star 4, Space Harrier, Afterburner, Galaxy Force, Quartet, spacey, futuristic, really cool, like not the kind of sci-fi that they have now, which is just kind of like gritty and grungy and people yelling at each other. It's more futuristic, techy. It gets your imagination going when you see it. You wonder what the story is behind the worlds that they're in, and it's an aesthetic and it's a gameplay style that we really enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw you guys unveiling it, and then I had the honor of being able to be the first person not involved in the project to play it.
Yeah, it was a great to.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, like, Space Harrier is the first thing that comes to mind. But then when you start playing it, you start to see that there's a lot more to it. Like you were talking about Phantasy Star. You might say, well, how the hell can you have Phantasy
It's about
Star?
Gameplay systems. You've got a sword. Actually, your gun transforms into a sword, and like you attack with it. And if you notice, there are extremely strange coincidences between Phantasy Star and Space Harrier. If you notice in Phantasy Star and Space Harrier, for the Genesis, part 2 of each, Phantasy Star 2 and Space Harrier 2, if you hit pause, they have the same pause tone. If you notice, like in the battles in Phantasy Star 2, there's like the grid, and I'm not sure if you watch Sega Hard Girls, but they actually have when they play on the Space Harrier machine, it's in the room with the Phantasy Star grid, and it even has the Mother Brain flames in the background. I'm just like, wow, there's some connections here,
Right.
and like the sci-fi, just the aesthetic and certain things about it, they just like fit right in there with each other. So while our game currently being shown at Galloping Ghost is an arcade game, we're actually planning to have a lot much more that will extend beyond what people would expect from just merely what might be a Space Harrier or an Afterburner or a Galaxy
Right.
Force. And yeah, we'll be revealing that in the months to come.
Right, of course.
Our producer's adamant about us not like spilling everything. So
Of course, you got to
yeah.
keep some secrets. For those listening, then the way it's set up is you have a flight stick almost, right, with the firing button on top.
Firing is trigger, so
Trigger,
it's like your
trigger.
trigger finger, and there's another button for special moves that you can use with your thumb, and they have face buttons on the panel, so you can, if you don't want to use the buttons on the stick, you can use the buttons on the panel
Right, and
for
so
lefties and righties.
Yeah, so I saw that there's 2 buttons on the left, 2 on the right, so it depends on which hand you're
Yeah,
using
whatever
the
you're
stick.
comfortable with.
Then there's the button in the middle. Now, what does that one in the middle do?
That's the boost button.
Okay.
It's another thing that you can do in the game. It makes your character move faster. So if you're moving left or right and you hit boost, you're going to get a burst of speed. It uses some energy, but you can get out of bad situations with it. If you hit that button right when you like slam into a pole or something, you'll actually parry it like in Street Fighter 3.
Oh, wow.
And it'll do less damage and it'll charge your super meter.
Right.
There's also, you can do it with a joystick too. So there is a boost button, but you can actually boost by hitting the joystick left and right really fast. So you can fly around and then bam, bam, like I called it slam boosting.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time tweaking it so you wouldn't get it by accident, but you'd actually get it when you wanted to. And the arcade machine is actually tweaked a little bit differently than on a gamepad. And I actually have the game recognize whether or not you're using a home controller or the arcade controller, and it actually adjusts it on the fly. And the other thing that's unique is there is actually an aim stick, which is a regular, it's an analog joystick, but it's kind of like a Sanwa fighting stick. That's a little bit below the buttons, and you can use your thumb or your palm to like aim, and you can shoot, kind of like a twin stick shooter.
Right.
So there's so many different ways that you can actually play the game. It might be a little intimidating at first, but, after playing it for a while, I was just like, when people, approach the game, they just want to bang on a fire button. They've got that.
Yeah.
But if they get more advanced, then they'll learn how to use both sticks, and you can actually just play it with like one stick in the left hand, one stick in the right hand, and do everything that way. If you wiggle the smaller stick, you actually get like massive firepower coming out.
Yeah.
So I sort of wrote the bezel so that it would give instructions on how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and I did liken it to Virtual-On too, both in controls, because when you sit down in a Virtual-On machine, it is a little intimidating at first, but once you get into it, it's like second nature. And so I felt that too with this. You were moving the character around with the flight stick, and then you've got your fingers pressing the buttons, and then you've got that little what were you calling it? That little like joystick down there below.
It's an aim stick. Yeah, I guess
yeah.
that's what I ended up calling it, as an aim stick.
And so it becomes second nature after a while. It's really
Yeah,
it's really a
I'm glad
bizarre
that
feeling.
even with your first game, you're able to sort of feel that. What we wanted to do is we wanted to translate like a modern console gamepad to an arcade format in a comfortable way. So if you have right stick aiming along with left stick movement, how would you do that on an arcade cabinet? Some people have used trackballs to do that, but for our purposes, being able to aim and have it center was important, because you might just have an enemy to the left or right and you just want to like fire a quick shot at them. You just tap the stick and boom, they're gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So right now it's at 5 to 10%.
It's like
complete.
really early. This
Yeah.
is the first we've ever shown it to anyone, and it's most people wouldn't expect us to do it that way. They'd expect us to like kind of like have like a site or like some kind of blog or something. But we're like, no, we want people to actually come out, play the game, talk about it, and see it in action. Even the stream, like I hope that it conveys properly, because the game is extremely high frame rate.
Yeah.
It's like I've been developing the game on a 120 hertz monitor, and with good hardware. So we want to make it like fast and like bringing the Sega gameplay and aesthetics up to the next level of technology, like having real-time physics, real-time lighting, make it look have all new effects, things that you wouldn't see back in the day. There are a lot of indie developers that have pixel art and things like that are purely retro, but we want to be an evolution of that retro. And a lot of people miss games and they want to play games that are like that, but not too often do you get to see a successor that uses new technology and takes it to the next place that those games would have been if they didn't stop making them.
Right. Of
And
course.
The thing that really struck out at me as I was developing this was I couldn't buy the game that I was making. I couldn't go out on Steam and say, okay, can I buy a modern version of Space Harrier or Afterburner? Well, Afterburner got pulled, but there was one example, right? Afterburner Climax got pulled from Xbox and PlayStation.
Right.
Outrun there is, but not Space Harrier.
Right.
So, and even Phantasy Star. So I took the games that I felt I missed the most and used that as sort of like energy to create a new franchise. And I'd like to liken what we're doing to what Shovel Knight did for Capcom Nintendo action platformers. What they did was, they took tropes from Mega Man and DuckTales and they did it really well. And they, even though that they were still in the retro space, they were able to add new things to the game, and I really respect them because they didn't just like rip off Mega Man and DuckTales. They actually made it their own. They added new things that those games didn't have. They added new gameplay mechanics. They had inspiration from newer games like Dark Souls, and they even went at length to talk about that. And we're doing that with Strike Harbinger. Like, you can run around and you can shoot, but you can also bust down poles with your sword.
Right.
And even if you don't have enough energy to bust it down with your sword, you can still hit the boost button and parry it like you're playing Street Fighter 3.
Right.
And we imagine that people who get really good at the game might see an entire chain of pulls, and just to show off, so it's like parry, 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 parry. I just Daigo'd that whole level.
Yeah,
And,
right.
I even balanced it so that if you have no life and you parry, you still don't die. Normally when you parry, you'll lose a little bit of health, but if you can keep it going, you'll charge your super meter. It actually increases your super meter the more times you do it. So there's a sort of risk reward and show off mechanism there, and a lot of depth in our game. And that'll extend to other modes, which may have you upgrading weapons or doing other things with your character. And right now we've got one character in the game, but we're planning to not just limit it to that one.
That's cool. That's cool. So, what are some of the Easter eggs that exist right now in the version that's out there? Is there anything you can talk about?
Yeah,
Maybe visual ones. Or...
There's a lot of stuff in there. We're planning to do a lot, especially with the writing. If you're a big Sega fan, if you beat the boss really fast, I mean, you could probably guess what we make her say. Gotta go fast.
Yeah, right.
So, but it was really great. Nikki is our voice actress. She did an amazing job. We had a lot of fun recording it, and she sounds just as a character, I think this is going to be some people's favorite character because we're giving her a great personality. And there's a lot of talk about how there aren't enough strong female heroes, but they didn't grow up playing stuff like Phantasy Star,
Right.
or even stuff recently there's Ys games that have really strong female characters, and we want to bring that to the next level too. And she's tough, she's got attitude, and she says funny things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Sega's always been really great with female
Yeah,
characters.
yeah.
I feel
Riko Kodama is amazing.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd keep making those games. And I'm looking forward to maybe someday they will. But until then, I'll be hard at work trying to give a little bit back to that, which maybe the player and the developer that I am now.
Yeah. So does the main character that's in the demo version out there right now, does she have a name?
Yeah,
What
it's
is it?
Valia Iris.
Okay. Cool. And can you tell me a little bit of the plot, maybe?
Yeah,
Get
actually I
going right
can
now?
if you're interested in hearing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, 1,000 years after the colonization of a planet, they were, spacefaring people. No one knew where they came from. Something bad probably happened to them a long time ago, and they were drifting on these spaceships, and one of them crash landed on a place, and it was a strange planet because it was what we call grid formed. It's like terraformed, but each of these grids, which are either a hexagon or a square, it's suited. You can do something to that square and make it easy to grow plant life or build structures and that sort of thing. So it was super terraformed, and it was already pre-done. So someone had terraformed this thing or made it easily terraformed by some force. No one knows who. It was uninhabited by intelligent life from when it was colonized. So anyway, 1,000 years later, bad stuff happens, and there's this disease, and all these people die, and people have to evacuate the planet, and there's these terrible monsters and creatures that are roaming the place. There's a lot of sci-fi in it. I wrote a really involved thing. It's it's gonna be great. You're gonna like it. but I don't want to like be too wordy about it. So anyway, bad stuff happens. They get exiled off the planet, and eventually, they're going to have to militarize and try to find a way to take back the planet. The menaces on the planet are really vicious, and the only way to overcome them is through extreme speed. Flight armor, known as Harbin gear, become the weapon of choice. Kind of have some influences from Attack on Titan, where if you lose your speed, you're dead. So in this game, speed is everything. And one thing that's found out is there's a disease, and if you want to be immune to the disease, if you're born off-world, you can't get the disease. And Valia was born off-world somewhere else, and her parents were like space explorers that bad things happened, and they were away from home, and they came back, and bad things happened, and her parents end up getting killed, but she grows up with a mission to take back the planet someday.
Cool.
And that's what that is. She has like a friend and mentor. It's like an older guy that served in the military that tried to take back the planet one time before, but he failed. And he was like serving with her father, and he's like a good friend to her, and he's been taking care of her. And where she flies fast and has a main atomic blaster style gun, he's got missile packs and can lock on.
Oh, okay. So he would be playable eventually.
He's an afterburner, but yeah.
That's really cool. Wow. So you put a lot of thought into the lore behind this and everything like that. Like, I mean, even thinking back to both Fantasy Zone and Space Harrier, there's this whole history there that, in Fantasy Zone they have these scrolls and they talk about like in the year, whatever XX, and then I forgot who it was. Someone online, I think, might have been Persona Sama, I think is his Twitter handle, but he went through and he ordered all those, and he was like, look at this, there's this timeline, there's this big history there behind all those games, and you never hear about it. And but I guess when I've been watching Atari documentaries, they talk a lot about the history behind oh man, what is that game, that crazy one with the grid? It's just, I'm at a blank right now, and you've got the weird little bug thing flying around.
Yar's Revenge?
Yar's Revenge, yeah, and there's this huge backstory behind that.
Yeah,
as well.
They had like comic books and stuff for it.
Yeah. I mean, are you going to? I mean, once.
Oh, obviously, right? Yeah. Well, it was really useful because when I write this stuff, it helps the ideas for other things to come together, like what levels we're gonna make, like what are our cutscenes gonna be like, and especially what we found out lately. I was able to provide our voice actress with like who her character is and like what kind of attitude she should have. It's like she's young, she's confident, but she has this mission that she has to do, and but yet she's like kind of like competitive inside, and she has like an internal voice that's always like trying to like be the best, and sometimes she lets it slip, and like when she's fighting and she says certain things, it's like you can kind of hear that as a player,
right?
But then the people around her actually don't hear that. And then it's going to be hilarious when some of them do pick up on it and say like, "Hey, did you just like say that?"
Yeah,
and it's just like
that's really cool.
Yeah,
so it's not going to be like, that story won't be in your face, but you're definitely
no
hints from it.
We want to have the thing where it like it leads you in, where it's like there's some mystery there and it gets you interested, and you want to find out more about it. I actually do have like a story card on the cabinet.
Oh, that's cool.
That I put on there. You can check it out a little bit later.
Definitely.
But I was able to boil it down to 2 sentences actually.
Oh, there you go.
But there's enough back there to have a full fledged RPG story, and we're gonna take that to as far as we're gonna take it.
So is there going to be? I know with some of these arcade games they loop. I know like Space Harrier has the end. So is this going to have a ending? Eventually? I mean, I know this is a long ways off.
Yeah.
But...
So yeah, we're over a year away from finishing, but arcade mode is only one part of the game.
Okay.
And in it, the context of it is you're going to play through some stages, and it might be like you take a certain path that you want to take, because you can't have someone playing in the arcade for 20 hours just on one run.
Right.
Like you'll play a selection of levels, and then you'll beat it, and then maybe we'll have a system where you can like save it to like a card or even just that individual machine, because some games do that, and then you get like another reward for being having your name in it and then doing every level in the game.
That's awesome.
On multiple playthroughs, that sort of thing.
Oh wow.
But for home and for console, like there's going to be many ways to go through the game, many reasons to repeat levels, and to have fun in our world. One thing that I think games don't do enough is, they'll have a game and they go through the trouble of making, a fun gameplay, but there's no replay value. And like they'll try to make replay value, but it still feels like a grind. But I want to have like replay value that you're not doing it just to grind, like you're actually having fun with it. And then just the fact that, you're able to like get, better weapons or like some story logs and things like that, it's just like icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So, like the fun factor of the game is something that we're really focused on, and just being able to like move your character around and blow stuff up. We definitely wanted like that to be front and center.
Well, that's really cool. So this is the only place that people can play it right now. At
Yeah,
Galloping
and it's
Ghost
only going to be
Arcade.
here for a couple of days.
Yeah. So by the time someone hears this,
Yeah,
it won't be here.
Yeah, it won't be here, but we do plan to update and like bring a version back when it's in the next phase, and eventually it'll become like a permanent machine here at the arcade, just because Galloping Ghost is awesome, and Doc's been doing so much to help us, and even just being here and being around this atmosphere where people are playing games and celebrating Sega, like there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to end things here, I want to ask you maybe if you were to give advice to someone either trying to break into the games industry or someone in the games industry right now who's maybe either struggling with getting some ideas off the ground, something like that, is there any advice that
Oh
you
man,
would give?
yeah, this is actually a good reflection on what I just talked about, is that sometimes like if you make what you like and what you feel that like doesn't exist that only you could make, like even if you don't have the ability to make it right this second, maybe over time you'll find the way to do it. Like if I told myself I'd be coding like everything in this game like 2 years ago, I'd say you're crazy and you should like I don't know, do something else, or I don't know. I never thought I'd have to do that, and when I first started the project, I would be asking for code support from producer or something else, or would think we'd have to hire a programmer or something like that, because even though I do have experience in development, and I've done I would do systems on games, like I did AI for Primal Rage, and I did scripting for all sorts of stuff on Unreal Engine. Like I didn't have the ability to do what I'm doing like today. Like today, when I had to get the game ready for the arcade, and I had to solve problems and fix bugs and do everything in real time. I had to, like, knowing that it was going to be an arcade, I had to program a high scoreboard. I had to, make it save, the score so that when you power it off or power it on. I actually made the box that goes into the arcade machine power up, act exactly like an arcade board, boot straight to the game with no OS. And I figured out how to do that in less than 3 weeks. Like, we didn't have very much time to prepare for this, but I was just like, you know what? We got to do this. We're serious about it. It's got to get done. No one else is going to do it but you.
Yeah.
So when you realize that if you have a dream, or if you have a game that you want to make, or you can't play what you want to play, and you're trying to find inspiration for it, like think of the thing that you wish you could play the most. Like, it doesn't even matter what it is, and then just work little by little towards it. You learn more every day, and it's never a bad day to learn new things.
Yeah.
I think I just remembered one of my favorite Street Fighter quotes I wrote was, every moment gives us a chance to become more than what we are. And if you use all of your moments and you're constantly improving yourself, then you can make anything happen.
Nice. Wow, that's inspirational.
Yeah. Read some of Ryu's win quotes from like Third Strike and Alpha 3.
Yeah.
And I wrote a lot of like fun, inspirational stuff.
That's really cool.
Especially for Ryu. Ken has fun stuff. Akuma has like brutal stuff.
Of course.
Sagat's like all vengeful. Like I really liked writing for Street Fighter.
Yeah.
It's a very great experience.
Nice. Well, now you're writing for your own new game.
Yeah. I've just been a huge sci-fi buff, and like I love stories.
Yeah.
I love immersing myself in them, and I think a lot of what goes wrong in the world today is because people have stopped using their imagination and dreaming and thinking like, well, look to the stars, like what's out there, let's find out more. And immerse yourself in the mysteries of life and find out things that other people haven't discovered before.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for talking.
Oh, thanks,
with
Barry.
me.
This is a great interview. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, here we are. Now you are in the pantheon of Segabit's Swing and Report show interviews.
Thanks. I'm sorry if it's so wordy. I mean, I was just,
No.
like I said, I just jacked myself up on Rockstars like for like 2 months straight, and
Yeah.
this is sort of like the happy like epilogue
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah, for now. You get back to work, but there won't be that crunch time.
Yeah. This was like the craziest self-imposed crunch I've ever been in, and like I've worked in the industry like all my life, so. But this one was special because I like when you know what's at stake and you know what the opportunities are, and you really like love the people that you're going to be showing something to, then you'll do it and you won't regret it. You won't feel bitter about it. It's not like working for a company that's like saying you have to work this hard. It's more like I just can't wait to see people like enjoying the game, and I can't wait to see it, up in lights in the arcade cabinet and people talking about it, and people like you like playing it, who's like, probably be a huge critic of it because you're so familiar with the things that's inspired by. And if we can, serve you and give you an experience that you like, then we know we've done our job, and that there's no better feeling than that.
It was a fantastic game. So, I mean, what's there right now?
It's super early, and like, we're still a little nervous about, people seeing it so early, but we hope that it's a good start. And we had to start somewhere. I keep on telling my producer, it's like, we could keep it a secret forever, but, we're going to have to tell people about it somehow. And, this is just the motivation we need to sort of like boost it. And people who have been asking me, what are you working on? And I'm like, I can't talk about it yet. Well, now I can like say like, okay, yeah, I'm working on that thing. Yeah. That thing that Sega people like.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely stay in touch with you on it. I definitely want to have you come back on once it's further along. We can talk about what you've added, what you've changed, all those sorts of things. Is there somewhere online where people can hear your thoughts or musings? Twitter, Facebook, something like that?
Not yet. Like I said, I've been sort of just like headlong dived into development and just hammering this thing out, especially in the last 2 months after we found out that we're coming here for this thing. There hasn't been much time for anything else, and I'm not super visible on social media, even though like there's probably people who would think that I'd have like a bigger presence, but I've just been really busy, and I think that's a difference between a lot of people who are in this sort of thing, is like people like don't have time when they don't have time to do those extra things when they're super busy and still in it. And I'm definitely still in the trenches and trying to make great games, and like maybe when the dust is settled, I'll have time to like talk about it on social media and stuff. But for now, it's just like where do I find the time?
No, do what works for
I want to
you.
go play Dark Souls 3. I haven't even gotten to touch it yet.
Yeah,
There's so many
exactly.
games. Like it's like put my life on hold, and, for the deadlines. And now that now that this is sort of over, I can actually go back to the arcade and play some games, and go home and play Dark Souls 3 and listen to more of your podcasts. And this is like, life will be really good.
Yeah,
but,
you've earned this small break before you get back to work on it, because you've already told me there's already changes.
Yeah, I mean, I do have like a Facebook account. The first thing I'm going to say is the battle has ended in a resounding success.
Yes.
Which is the thing that Space Harrier says when he completes his mission.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Chris, thank you again for sitting down to talk. And we'll be in touch. And check segabits.com. We'll post updates to the game if need be. It's still
when we
young.
have more to talk. It's really early. Like it is just like a sneak peek. Like just to get it out there. We're actually talking about it in terms of like, well, when people find out about it later, they'll come back and look at this and they'll say like, oh, well, look how legit it was, like, even way back then. And that's the sort of thing that we wanted to establish now, and have something where real Sega enthusiasts and people who love games like this will be able to not just like hear about it, but to actually enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats again.
Thanks.
And we'll have you back on. So thanks for listening, everybody.
SegaBits Swingin' Report Show is a production of SegaBits. SegaBits is a fan site that is not in any way officially affiliated with Sega. Sonic the Hedgehog and all Sega-related trademarks are copyright Sega. All other featured trademarks are the property of their respective owners. Don't forget to check out SegaBits.com, and you can find us on all major social networks. Just search SegaBits.